My daughter told me she was dying. She wept in my arms until I sold her my house. Cheap, fast, no questions. 3 weeks later, I found out there was no illness, no diagnosis, just manipulation. She wanted my home, so I made one phone call and tripled her mortgage overnight. She faked cancer to rob her mother. Now she's paying for it, every single month. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. The message came at 6:13 a.m., right as Marilyn was steeping her morning tea. At ER numbness, arms tingling, possible MS. Miss RI next. Just scared. Please don't worry too much. Love you. There was a photo attached. Stephanie half reclined on a hospital gurney, lips pursed, eyes wide with a practiced mix of vulnerability and drama. A white blanket was folded just right. Hospital band visible. A little too visible. Marilyn stared at the screen, the tea forgotten beside her. For a moment something in her chest pinched, not fear, exactly, but a memory. She'd seen real emergencies, bloodless faces, nurses not posing in the background, IV bags hanging, not staged. This photo had angles. She tapped back a reply. I'm here if you need anything. What hospital? 3 dots pulsed on the screen. Then the reply came, Wilmington General. But don't drive all the way down. I'll keep you posted. Miss RI soon. Just maybe we talk soon about long-term support, you know. Maybe downsizing. We could both benefit. Just think about it. Marilyn's lips pressed together. There it was. Not even 10 minutes into a supposed medical crisis, and Stephanie was already circling the house again. Her house. The one built brick by brick with Alan, 3 decades before home values meant more than family. She poured her tea and sat down at the kitchen table. The mug trembled slightly in her hand, not from age, but rage compressed and tidy, like everything else in her life. By 9 a.m., she was in the car. At the hospital, the nurse at the front desk looked up from her clipboard. Stephanie Holmes? She already discharged herself about 40 minutes ago, she said. Didn't even wait on test results. You family. I'm her mother-in-law. Marilyn replied, calm. She texted that she was staying for an MRI. The nurse frowned. She said she was feeling better. Said it was probably anxiety. Marilyn thanked her and left without another word. Stephanie's silver Lexus was still in the front circle drive when Marilyn pulled back into her own driveway. The smell of expensive perfume drifted from the open garage door as Stephanie stepped out, perfectly made up, tight ponytail swinging. She didn't even flinch at the sight of Marilyn standing by the mailbox. Oh, I thought you were busy this morning, Stephanie said lightly, gathering bags from the car. They let me out early. Just a flare-up. Nothing serious, they said. No MRI. Marilyn asked evenly. Stephanie shrugged. They were backed up. Might need to schedule outpatient. Honestly, it scared me though. Makes you think about how fragile everything is, doesn't it? Then she turned, as if it were a casual afterthought. And speaking of fragile, your place. That old porch. Those stairs. It's a lot to manage. If we pooled resources, found a one level with more support for both of us, I just think it'd be good to talk. Marilyn nodded slowly. We can talk. Later. Stephanie smiled, like a pageant queen. Perfect. That evening, Rachel came into the kitchen and tossed her backpack on the floor, face pink from the humid afternoon. Grandma, she said, pulling open the fridge. Just so you know, I saw Mom jogging yesterday morning, like full jog. She looked fine. Marilyn said nothing at first, just turned off the burner, her hand still resting lightly on the knob. I figured, she said finally, but thank you. Later that night, long after the dishes were done, and Rachel had gone upstairs, Marilyn walked past the den and paused. Stephanie's tote bag, the one she always brought for emergencies, had been left open on the couch. Marilyn wouldn't have looked, not ordinarily, but something glinted from inside, a neat stack of printouts, color-coded with highlighter marks and tabs. She lifted the top page slowly. Comps, 3 bed, 2 bath, corner lots. Underneath, Marilyn's full address circled in red ink. The next morning, Marilyn slid the folded comps page into a manila envelope and sealed it without flinching. The kettle hissed behind her, but she didn't move to silence it. She just stood there, her hand resting lightly on the counter, the sound boiling over behind her. She dialed Clint Warner's office from memory. "Clint, it's Marilyn Decker. I need you to meet me. This morning if possible," she said. "It's about my deed. Someone's coming for it." His pause was brief, but meaningful. "I'll make time." They met at his office above Dog-Eared Books, just off Water Street. Clint hadn't changed much in 20 years. Same gray sideburns, same tweed jacket with a stubborn coffee stain on the right lapel. But the look in his eyes changed the moment Marilyn slid the comps page across his desk. "She circled the house," Marilyn said, "like it's prey." Clint adjusted his glasses, then looked up at her. "You want the title flagged? I want it locked, booby-trapped, and buried under 6 feet of legal concrete," she replied. He didn't argue. Instead, he opened a drawer and pulled out a slim folder stamped Real Property Alert form and a flash drive. "This triggers an alert with the new Hanover County Register. No sale, no refinance, no deed transfer happens without you in person." Marilyn signed with a firm hand. "And if she tries?" Clint smiled thinly. "Then she walks straight into a wall. A loud legal one." Back home, Marilyn found Rachel in the sunroom, laptop open, earbud dangling from one ear. She looked up, caught her grandmother's expression, and pulled the bud out. "What happened?" "I hired a wall," Marilyn said, setting her handbag down. "Now I want to see what your mother's been Googling lately." Rachel hesitated. "Are you sure you want to?" "Absolutely not," Marilyn replied. "Do it anyway." Rachel scrolled through the family iPad, still linked to Stephanie's Google account, thanks to an oversight neither she nor Greg had thought to correct. Marilyn watched her granddaughter's face slowly darken. "How to unlock home equity from inherited property." Rachel read aloud. "Quick sell options for homes with elderly occupants." She turned the screen around. "There's more. A lot more." Marilyn said nothing. She reached for her reading glasses, slid them on and kept scanning. Then she paused. "Can you check Pinterest?" Rachel blinked. "Pinterest?" She used to call it her vision board. "Let's see what she's envisioning." It took under a minute. Stephanie's account was public, her boards obsessively labeled. One in particular caught Marilyn's eye. "Mom's House Flip, 2025 Goals." Inside were pictures of airy kitchens, white subway tiles, minimalist decor and captions like "Use inherited layout but modernize completely." One pin featured a house with a porch identical to Marilyn's, only staged with furniture she didn't own. Rachel's lips pressed into a line. She's not just planning, she's rehearsing. That evening, Marilyn sat at the dining room table with a yellow legal pad, listing everything she had to secure: accounts, mail, utilities, titles. Rachel wandered in with a soda and paused mid-sip. Grandma?" Marilyn looked up. "I found something in Mom's Drive folder." "I wasn't snooping. I swear. It was in the cloud. Unprotected." She placed her phone on the table. On screen, a polished real estate listing draft, glossy photos of the home's interior, price estimates, staged language like "charming corner lot with legacy value, must-see opportunity." Marilyn's name wasn't listed anywhere. "Where did she get these pictures?" Marilyn asked. Rachel looked away. "I think last month. When you were at the doctor." Marilyn stood quietly. "Print it, email it to me, and delete every trace you touched." The next morning she stopped by the credit union. It smelled like lavender air freshener and cheap carpet, just like it always had. She was depositing a check when something caught her eye on the corkboard by the exit. Flyers. Lost dog local events, babysitting offers, and one flyer that made her heart stop. "For sale by owner, 3-bed 2-bath, prime corner lot." A photo of her house. Slightly angled. No contact info. Just a QR code. The smell hit Marilyn the moment she stepped through the front door. Rosemary, garlic, butter searing in a cast iron pan. It was the kind of meal Stephanie only made for guests. or guilt. Perfect timing. Stephanie sang from the kitchen, wearing an apron that read hostess with the mostest in gold script. Her hair was twisted up, makeup flawless. Marilyn noted the detail. Every bit of this evening had been orchestrated. The dining table was already set. Cloth napkins, wine glasses, 3 candles burning low. Rachel met her eyes from across the room and gave the faintest shake of her head. Big day, Stephanie said, setting down a platter of herb-crusted steaks. We have to celebrate health while we have it, right? You never know when it'll all change. She turned to Greg. Tell her what Dr. Carr said. Greg, who had barely looked up from his phone, straightened. Right, yeah. He said it could have been early onset MS, or just stress. Honestly, we've all been under pressure. He glanced at Marilyn meaningfully, then poured her a generous glass of red. Let's not dwell, Stephanie said brightly. We're all here, family together. Marilyn eased into the chair, careful to keep her tone pleasant. And how is the market these days? Still tight inventory? Stephanie perked up instantly. Wild. Multiple offers over asking, even in boring neighborhoods. People are desperate for corner lots, especially with character. Marilyn took a sip of her water instead of wine. Rachel, seated beside her, leaned forward and swapped the wine glasses during a clatter of forks, smooth, practiced, unnoticed. So, Greg said, cutting into his steak, we've been talking about retirement. Your situation. You've got a lot of untapped liquidity in that house. Stephanie jumped in. Not that we're pressuring, just thinking aloud. Imagine how much simpler things could be. Smaller place, closer to us, or even something with shared walls. No maintenance stress. Marilyn smiled sweetly. And you'd help me with the paperwork, I assume? Of course, Stephanie said, eyes glinting. It's what I do. I'd need you both to walk me through it. Marilyn said, cutting her steak. Everything. Slowly, I'm just a librarian after all. Rachel's fork paused midair. Eyes narrowed. Dinner ended with caramel tarts from a bakery. Stephanie hated another flag. Marilyn excused herself early, blaming digestion, and headed to the guest bathroom. Instead, she veered into the office. The desk drawer wasn't locked. It rarely was. Stephanie believed in controlling people, not furniture. Inside, carefully filed, was a folder labeled Retirement Path, MDH. Marilyn's initials. She pulled it out. Inside were loan pre-approval letters, adjustable rate mortgage projections, a refinancing packet with Greg's letterhead at the bottom, and tucked in the back, a home appraisal report, her house, photos of her living room, her bedroom, even her bathroom, taken without her knowledge. The scent of gardenia clung faintly to the pages. Voices from the hallway floated toward the door. I think she's on the fence, Stephanie whispered. She asked about the market. Greg. Just keep smiling. Wear her down. Marilyn slid everything back exactly as she found it, except for the last page, which she folded and slipped into her purse. Back at the table, Stephanie was reclining dramatically, one hand on her temple. I think I overdid it, she said softly. Stress triggers everything lately. Greg handed her a glass of water like it was a prop. I'll check on you tomorrow, Marilyn said, and maybe bring some of that chamomile you like. Stephanie smiled faintly. You're too good to me. Marilyn walked to the door with Rachel trailing behind. Once outside, under the porch light, Rachel whispered, What did you find? Marilyn opened her purse and unfolded the final page. A mortgage loan estimate. Borrower Stephanie Decker Homes cosigner, implied Marilyn Decker property. Marilyn's address. The paper fluttered in the breeze. I didn't choke, Marilyn said softly. But she will. The moment Marilyn hung up with the billing department, she knew. No MRI, no blood work, no neurological consult, just a 15-minute visit coded as a precautionary anxiety episode. The woman had lied to her face, then lied to the medical system. But this time, the receipts weren't digital metaphors, they were literal. Marilyn sat back in her chair, sunlight stretching in stripes across her dining table. A cardinal tapped at the window. She didn't move. Her tea had gone cold. Her anger, by contrast, was simmering low and steady. She dialed again, this time to Dr. Kessler's office. "Hi, it's Marilyn Decker. I need a few minutes of the doctor's time. No appointment, just a question." The nurse recognized her name. "Hang on a moment." Dr. Kessler's voice was warm, familiar, professional. "Marilyn, good morning. What's going on?" "I wanted your opinion on something hypothetical," she said, keeping her voice mild. "If someone went to the ER complaining of tingling and numbness, what would it take for them to get an MRI for suspected MS?" He let out a soft laugh. "A lot more than symptoms. It takes a referral, multiple visits, neurological testing, a follow-up. That diagnosis isn't handed out like Halloween candy." So she said, if they left the ER within an hour with no imaging done, and told people they were being evaluated for MS, then they're either grossly misinformed, he said, or they're playing dress-up with the idea of being sick. That was all Marilyn needed. She hung up and called Clint next. "I want everything protected. All of it. My name, my property, my power of attorney. If she even thinks of touching it, I want the law standing between us." Clint didn't hesitate. "I'll file a property hold, and lock your deed with preemptive fraud flags. That'll make it nearly impossible for anyone to slip your house into escrow without your verified approval. Do it today." "Already moving," he replied. She ended the call, exhaled once, then looked down at the folder still on her lap. Her address, her equity, her legacy. Stephanie had put it on the auction block with a smile and an imaginary disease. That afternoon, Erin Patel met her outside the credit union, in the shade of a crepe myrtle. "She asked me if home equity could be unlocked early on an inherited property," Erin said, her tone careful, but clear. "She implied you were considering a joint title or reverse mortgage, but I had my doubts, so I stalled." "Did she file anything?" "Not yet. But her credit's bad. Very bad. We're talking past due cards, interest-only minimums, maxed limits. If she could move your assets into shared access, she could buy herself 2 or 3 months of illusion." Marilyn absorbed it without flinching. "How long before she tries again?" "Soon," Erin said. "Desperate people move fast." That evening, Marilyn came home to find Rachel hunched over her laptop in the corner of the living room, a second monitor open beside her. "What's that?" Marilyn asked. Rachel didn't answer. She clicked once, then turned the screen. Greg's Facebook Marketplace profile was open. 5 items listed in the past 48 hours. A luxury watch, a camera drone, a golf club set, a mint-condition turntable, and a barely used mountain bike. "None of that's hers," Rachel muttered. "And he hasn't worked a client in 3 weeks." Marilyn nodded slowly. "And yet they're building a life on mine." She opened her handbag, took out a small black rectangle, and placed it on the table. "What's that?" "A pocket recorder," Marilyn said. "From the office supply store. Every time we speak from now on, anything of consequence, it gets recorded and backed up." Rachel blinked. "You're documenting." "I'm protecting." The next morning, Rachel sat on the couch scrolling through her phone, while Marilyn organized paperwork at the dining table. The house was silent, except for the hum of the fridge and the steady scratch of a pen. Then Rachel froze. "What is it?" Marilyn asked without looking up. Rachel's thumb hovered over the screen. "It's a Google Calendar alert, shared with Mom's business account." Marilyn looked up. "What does it say?" Rachel turned the phone toward her. "Listing appointment, 11:30 a.m. Grandma's address. Tomorrow." Stephanie had no idea how much power she handed Marilyn the moment she circled that comp sheet in red ink. She was so busy faking health scares and listing appointments, she forgot the one rule Marilyn had followed all her life. If someone writes you into a story, learn to control the ending. It started with a quiet visit to the credit union, 2 days after the Google Calendar alert. Erin Patel met her in her office, blinds half drawn, steaming mugs of hibiscus tea between them. "I need to understand my daughter's mortgage," Marilyn said, sliding a file across the table. "Not just the total owed, the structure." Erin hesitated. Legally. She listed my home, without my permission. She forged a POA. She's tampering with financial institutions and real estate records. A long pause. Aaron opened the drawer and pulled out a folder. Stephanie and Greg refinanced 6 years ago. Adjustable rate mortgage. Interest only for the first half, now rolling into principal with a balloon payment next April. Amount: just under $94,000 still owed on the primary, but there's a second lien, 22 grand. Open-ended, tied to a home equity draw. Marilyn's eyes sharpen. Who holds the second lien? Independent lender, now servicing through a wholesaler. Honestly, it's been bouncing around, likely for sale again soon. Let me know when it is, Marilyn said. I want to buy it. Aaron blinked. Buy your daughter's debt, anonymously. She walked out into the afternoon light, air heavy with jasmine and smoke from someone's backyard grill. That night she opened her fireproof box, withdrew an old annuity Alan had insisted they keep just in case, and called Clint. He didn't flinch. We'll build a shell LLC. Just enough distance to keep your name off the chain of title. You'll need to move fast when it goes to auction. She smiled. I'll move like she never expected. 3 days later, Clint texted one word, available by Friday. By Friday, Marilyn owned the secondary lien on Stephanie's house. Debt, weaponized. Clint filed the lien transfer under Watershed Holdings LLC and immediately restructured the terms. Escrow was recalculated. Interest adjusted. A payment schedule was generated that tripled Stephanie's current monthly due, triggered by a clause she'd never read properly. Aaron, with clinical precision, mailed the legally required modification letter. Then she made an extra copy and handed it to Rachel. Deliver it, Marilyn said. Right into her hand. Rachel raised an eyebrow. You want her to know? I want her to feel it. The same way she expected me to feel eviction. It arrived 2 days later, sealed in an envelope stamped mortgage escrow adjustment notice. Rachel dropped it into the home's mailbox just before noon. By 1:13 p.m., Marilyn heard it. The scream ripped across the neighborhood like a kettle boiling over. What is this? Then came the fast footsteps. Slamming car door. Tires crunching across her gravel drive. The front door burst open without a knock. Stephanie stood there, hair wild, cheeks flushed, envelope clutched in one shaking hand. You did something, she hissed. Marilyn didn't blink. You're in my house. Uninvited. What did you do? I made sure your numbers were real, not staged, Marilyn said, rising slowly from the armchair. Turns out math tells the truth, even when people lie. Stephanie's hand trembled. My mortgage tripled overnight. You think I won't find out how? I think you already know. Her daughter took one step forward, then stopped, teetering between panic and fury. You're sabotaging me. Marilyn looked her straight in the eye. No, Stephanie, I'm mirroring you. Stephanie looked around the room like the walls were conspiring. This isn't over. Marilyn leaned closer. It just changed chapters. Stephanie showed up 2 days later, holding a peace offering wrapped in wax paper banana bread, overbaked at the edges. Her smile was too wide. Her knuckles were too white. I panicked, she said the moment Marilyn opened the door. I thought we were on the same page. I thought you understood. Marilyn let her stand on the porch in her heeled boots and designer scarf, sweat glistening at her hairline. She said nothing. Stephanie tried again. I made a mistake, all right? I just wanted to be ready in case you changed your mind. Marilyn stepped aside, letting the silence stretch between them. She didn't reach for the bread. You thought wrong, she said finally, her voice like dry ice. Inside, the house smelled like lemon oil and fresh paper. Rachel sat at the kitchen table, printing something on thick cardstock. She didn't look up when her mother entered. Stephanie placed the banana bread down a little too hard. I was trying to help us both. You live in this big place alone. You're not getting younger. I was thinking ahead. Rachel slid a freshly printed page onto the fridge and secured it with a magnet shaped like a cardinal. It was the fake listing. Property address, Marilyn Decker, 110 Carriage Road. Status, coming soon. Agent, Stephanie Decker. Homes price, aggressively priced for quick equity unlock. Stephanie's smile faltered. You're being dramatic. No, Marilyn said. Stepping closer. You were. And now I'm responding. That evening, Clint filed a cease and desist with Stephanie's brokerage, attaching the unauthorized draft listing and evidence of deceptive POA claims. He sent her a digital copy and copied the managing broker. Stephanie replied with a 2-word email. This is harassment. Clint didn't respond. Greg, however, tried to get clever. He called Clint's office the next morning, using his most polished voice. Clint, I think there's been a miscommunication. We're just trying to support my mother-in-law's next chapter. Clint hung up without a word. By noon, Aaron Patel had already flagged Marilyn's credit union profile. Any joint access, secondary authorizations, or family-linked notifications were locked down. Stephanie's name vanished from every field. From now on, Aaron told Marilyn, nothing gets seen, moved, or touched without your express consent. Good. Marilyn replied. I've given enough away by accident. That night, Marilyn sat on the back porch with Rachel, sipping sweet tea and listening to the cicadas rise in a steady wall of sound. You think she's scared yet? Rachel asked quietly. She should be. I think she's too arrogant to be scared. Yet, Marilyn watched the sun drop low over the neighbor's fence. Fear doesn't come all at once. It builds like rain in the gutter. Slow then sudden. Inside, Stephanie's banana bread remained untouched on the kitchen counter, hardening by the hour. The next morning, as Marilyn stepped out to retrieve the mail, she spotted something new tucked among the circulars and bills. A small white business card. Front Detective Sharon Langley, Wilmington PD. Financial and Elder Affairs Unit back. Call me. Privately. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a move. A deliberate, inked-over forged maneuver by someone who believed her mother wouldn't notice a lie in the footnotes. Detective Sharon Langley sat across from Marilyn at the corner table in a tucked-away cafe above the used bookstore. They kept their voices low, drowned out by clinking cups and the hiss of steamed milk. She submitted a power of attorney to your credit union, Sharon said. Filed it under urgency. Claimed you'd had a minor cognitive decline and were transitioning assets. Marilyn didn't flinch. And did anyone grant it? No. Aaron flagged it immediately and contacted me. It's a poorly done photocopy. Wrong notary seal. An outdated witness form from 3 states ago. Amateur fraud. She thought she could wear me down with bad paper and fake sympathy, Marilyn said. She didn't count on your file being so clean, Sharon replied. Marilyn reached into her tote bag and laid out a slim folder. Crisp, no corners bent. Here's my estate plan. Notarized, dated last spring. Full cognitive and medical clearance attached. My attorney's copy is on file with the clerk and my doctor's office. Sharon opened it, skimming the signatures. Very sharp. I may move slower these days, Marilyn said. But my mind doesn't drag. Later that day, Clint walked into the county clerk's office like he was ordering coffee. Calm, courteous, dangerous with a pen. He filed a fraud alert request, tied directly to Marilyn's property parcel. Any future filings involving POA or title would now trigger automatic review and verification with her personally. The red flag was official. That night, Rachel stood at the kitchen table with her phone, brows furrowed, earbuds in. Marilyn leaned against the counter watching her sift through old files on the cloud. She said it once, Rachel muttered. That night, after the fake hospital visit, I remember she left her phone recording while talking to Greg. One of those voice memos she never deletes. She clicked. Then they heard it. She won't even know if I start the process. Stephanie's voice said, dry and casual. She naps half the day. I'll keep it soft until the paperwork's filed. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded. Marilyn looked out the window toward her rose garden, still half wild. She called it soft, like theft has a gentler version. They sent the clip to Clint. He sent it to Sharon. The next morning, Aaron Patel called Marilyn directly. Her voice was neutral, but her tone was razor sharp. Just so you know, I've flagged your daughter's financial activity under federal regulation threshold. Too many asset inquiries tied to elderly adjacent filings, plus debt juggling and misleading collateral language. It'll be on record. Will that affect her job? Eventually, Aaron said. These things ripple outward. That ripple landed with Greg before lunchtime. He arrived at his boutique office in downtown Wilmington to find a formal warning slipped under his door, pending investigation into misuse of credentials and unauthorized mortgage advice tied to a family member's estate. He texted Stephanie from the stairwell. You said it was clean. It's not. Stephanie didn't reply. She was too busy calling 6 different numbers, trying to figure out why every back door was slamming shut. At home, Marilyn kept her recorder charged and her eyes wide. By afternoon, Sharon called again. Her voice was calm but electric. We may be able to open a criminal case, she said. What we have is suggestive, manipulation, intent, fraud. But it's not airtight yet. I just need one more thing. Marilyn's voice was steady. You need the trigger. Yes, Sharon said. Something undeniable, something she can't walk back. The printer whirred late into the night, page after page sliding out with mechanical indifference, documents that now felt radioactive. Stephanie's texts, her emails, voicemails wrapped in false concern, realtor pitch decks, a PDF titled Transition Timeline, Pre-Listing Stages, Elder Seller. Each one, printed, signed, and time-stamped by Marilyn in calm looping cursive. She slipped them into a tabbed binder, sheet protectors crinkling as they sealed. At the top she added a hand-labeled page, Prima du page, P1Q2 timeline. Underneath, when a daughter stops being a daughter and starts being a strategist. In the den, Rachel sat cross-legged on the floor with 2 laptops open, headphones over one ear, scrolling through cloud folders and audio memos. The glow of the screens lit her face like a campfire. Folders ready, she said, dragging the last file into place. Everything's sorted by month, by file type, and matched against your bank records and home appraisal dates. She turned the screen so Marilyn could read the title, I Intend to Defraud. Smart name, Marilyn said. Legal enough to matter. Simple enough to sting. By morning, Clint had the binder. He reviewed it on his porch swing with a glass of black iced coffee, flipping slowly, eyebrow raised every 10 pages. Then he slipped the signed affidavit into a courier envelope and handed it to a uniformed delivery clerk bound for Sharon Langley's desk. Within 24 hours, the file had a name. Decker Homes, Stephanie. Classification: potential financial exploitation of elderly relative. Marilyn didn't hear about the file opening from Sharon first. She heard about it from Rachel, who discovered mid-chemistry homework that Greg's business website had gone offline, entirely scrubbed, his LinkedIn down, Twitter locked. Think someone tipped him off? Rachel asked. Marilyn didn't answer immediately. She was watching a pot of soup simmer on the stove, wooden spoon held still in her hand. If the rats are running, she said finally, it means they know the ship's cracked. Later that afternoon, Marilyn stepped softly down the hallway. The air in the house was different. Too quiet. Too still. She heard a shuddered breath from the kitchen. Stephanie sat at the table, phone dangling in her hand, red-faced and shaking. Tears, real ones this time. A stack of unopened mail sat beside her. Rachel's scholarship letter. A deferred loan notice. A bounced auto debit from their HOA dues. Everything's falling apart, Stephanie whispered, not seeing Marilyn in the doorway. It's like someone's pulling strings behind my back. From the stairs, Marilyn watched in silence. No comfort, no movement, just gravity. She turned away before she was seen, retreating to her bedroom, where her recorder was charging and a notepad sat open to the next name on her list. Detective Sharon Langley. As if summoned by thought, Marilyn's phone rang. Caller ID: Langley, Sharon, Wilmington PD, she answered. No pleasantries. We're in, Sharon said. We've got cause. I filed the official case number. Next step is device seizure and digital forensics. We're coming for her phone, her tablet, her laptop, anything that touches this paper trail. Marilyn closed her eyes. Do it, she said. You'll be notified once the search is served. Stay neutral, let her walk into it. I've been neutral long enough. A pause. You really want to know what made the case lock in? Sharon added quietly. That PDF you labeled, the one she wrote. Transition timeline. Elder seller. It read like a checklist for exploitation. She thought she was building her future, Marilyn said. Turns out she was drafting her indictment. The knock came at 8:47 a.m. firm, measured, official. And far too early for the kind of surprise Stephanie had planned for the day. When she opened the front door, still in a silk robe and half-done eyeliner, she was greeted not by brunch, but by two plainclothes officers, a uniformed deputy, and Detective Sharon Langley, holding a signed search warrant in one steady hand. This is for the collection of all digital devices, communications, and property records in your residence, Sharon said, calm as ever. You are not under arrest at this time, but we are executing a lawful seizure. Stephanie blinked, then backed up, hands fluttering like broken birds. What? This is a mistake. This is a mistake. Ma'am, step aside, one of the officers said, already putting on latex gloves. Rachel watched from the car parked across the street. Marilyn sat beside her, sipping a thermos of black tea, her eyes narrowed beneath tortoiseshell glasses. They're early, Rachel whispered. I told her to act surprised, Marilyn murmured. I didn't tell her I'd already seen this scene before. Inside the house, chaos bloomed. Stephanie's voice cracked as she screamed for Greg. He stumbled down the stairs shirtless, jaw slack, phone already in his hand. What the hell is this? He shouted. A detective reached out and plucked the phone from his grip. Exactly what we came for. Laptops, tablets, notebooks, a drawer full of real estate forms, copies of Marilyn's deed, mortgage mock-ups, and one heavily redlined POA draft with multiple correction layers in red ink, all scooped into evidence bags. Stephanie collapsed into a chair and buried her face in her hands. This is harassment. She's old. She's confused. You can't take everything. We can, Sharon said coolly. And we just did. 2 houses away, Clint Warner sat on Marilyn's porch, feet propped on the rail, sipping lemonade through a metal straw. The condensation from the glass beaded and ran down like sweat on a courthouse wall. Told you we'd need patience, he said, watching the scene unfold. Marilyn didn't smile, but her grip on the cane in her lap relaxed. Told you I had time. That afternoon, Rachel received an email she hadn't told anyone she applied for. The Wilmington Women in STEM Foundation Scholarship, full award. She stared at the screen for a full minute before whispering, "No way." She turned slowly toward Marilyn, who was folding laundry in the den. Did you? Marilyn didn't even glance up. Apply for you? No. Sponsor the fund? Quietly. Years ago, Rachel covered her mouth. Grandma. I invest where it counts. Meanwhile, Greg's morning had gotten worse. At 1:12 p.m., he attempted to transfer $7,500 from a joint account to an emergency line of credit. The screen flashed red. Transaction failed. Funds frozen pending fraud review. He threw his phone across the room. It hit the wall, slid behind the ficus, and cracked the ceramic pot on the way down. At 3:40 p.m., Aaron Patel's voice came through voicemail to Marilyn, clipped and precise. Hi, Miss Decker. Just confirming we've now classified Stephanie Holmes' mortgage as in default due to missed adjusted payments and tripled escrow. All notification letters have been sent. Let us know if you'd like a copy of the foreclosure timeline. I expect panic will set in by next Friday. Marilyn saved the voicemail under a new folder, Fallout. That night, Sharon called from her desk. The rustle of plastic evidence bags and keyboard clacks filled the line. We're sorting data now, she said. Emails, voice notes, draft files. We've already found one you're going to want to hear. Play it, Marilyn said. Sharon didn't hesitate. It was Stephanie's voice again, casual, cold. If she dies, we can sell in weeks. Greg, it's all lined up. Probate's automatic with the copy I drafted. No one will question it. There was a beat of silence on the line, the kind that made the floor tilt. Then Sharon's voice returned, sharper than before. That just shifted this into felony territory. She didn't just plan to manipulate you. She built a contingency around your death. Stephanie had built her narrative behind Wi-Fi signals and filters, digital sob stories, lawyer-sounding language, social media posts cropped to perfection. But the truth? Marilyn printed it. In bold numbered tabs, on bond paper with ink that didn't fade when the sun hit it. By the time Clint filed the public disclosure motion, the courthouse printer had spit out 86 pages, emails, text transcripts, real estate drafts, and that voice note, the one about Marilyn dying and Stephanie cashing in before the obituary ink was dry. I requested they be filed under her full legal name, Clint said, sliding the stamped packet onto Marilyn's table. Stephanie Marie Decker Holmes. So Google finds it. Sharon Langley followed with the next blow. Her case has moved from investigatory to pending charge. We'll issue the formal notification this week. Count 1. Attempted elder exploitation. More to come depending on the digital forensics. Marilyn simply nodded. Make sure she gets it in the mail. No emails, no texts. Let the paper speak. Rachel stood by the hallway arch, holding a note card in both hands, her fingertips smudged with black pen ink. You really want me to read it? She asked. Yes, Marilyn said, folding her napkin neatly. Say it loud, and make them look up when you say it. The next morning, Rachel stood on the auditorium stage at her high school's senior forum, a mic buzzing in front of her. Her hands steady now. People treat old age like weakness, she said, voice clear and sharp. But they forget who taught them strength, who signed the field trip forms, paid the bills, corrected their grammar, and sat in bleachers in the cold. A few kids in the audience laughed softly. My grandmother is not weak, she's not naive, and she's not someone you scheme against and walk away from. Marilyn sat in the back row, half in shadow, not clapping, just watching, and smiling once to herself. That afternoon, the Wilmington Library Women's Council called. We'd be honored if you join our spring panel on generational protection, the coordinator said. You're being recommended as someone who represents both legacy and resistance. Marilyn didn't answer immediately. She was pruning the yellow leaves from her porch fern with a pair of sharp shears. Put me down for it, she finally said. And spell my name correctly in the program. It'll last longer in the archive. The next day, Clint called with another development, his voice tinged with satisfaction. Her brokerage just suspended her. Internal review, ethics violations. Apparently someone sent them that PDF, transition plan, elder seller, with your name on it. Anonymous email. But well, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. She'll try to claim it was a draft, Marilyn said flatly. Won't matter. You can't unwrite intent. By the time the mail arrived on Thursday, Greg was already gone from his boutique firm. An audit had raised eyebrows. His name vanished from the website. Phone line disconnected. Marilyn didn't gloat. She simply watched it unfold like a gardener pulling weeds, not with joy, but with necessity. That evening, Stephanie stood alone at her mailbox, hair pulled back tight, makeup uneven, blouse rumpled. She opened the manila envelope slowly. It was stamped from the county clerk's office, and it had her name on it. Inside, notice of foreclosure initiation, filed under Liban Holder, M.D. Living Trust, Anonymous LLC. The payment due was triple what she was prepared to pay, ballooning monthly, locked in escrow, non-negotiable. Her knees bent slightly, just enough to wobble. Greg appeared behind her, saw the notice, and said nothing. They walked inside without speaking. The door closed like the end of a season. The knock this time wasn't law enforcement. It was softer, slower, almost shy. But Marilyn didn't move. She simply looked at the door from her armchair, expression unreadable, until Rachel walked over and opened it. Stephanie stood on the porch with a plastic smile stretched too tight. Her foundation clung to the sweat on her upper lip. Behind her, Greg lingered on the sidewalk, adjusting his blazer like it might change his fortunes. Can we talk? Stephanie asked, voice breathy. Just the two of us, please. Marilyn didn't answer. She stood slowly, walked to the doorway, and gestured toward the table in the front room without inviting them in. They followed like funeral guests, not mourners, just people arriving too late with the wrong flowers. Stephanie sat first, back stiff. "I've had time to think," she began. "And I know this has gone too far. You're upset, and I made mistakes. But we're family, and I think we can still come out of this quietly." "Quiet," Marilyn echoed, her voice calm. "Is what you counted on." Greg cleared his throat and leaned forward. "We're not trying to pressure you, Marilyn. This doesn't have to become some drawn-out courtroom mess. We can talk about terms. Privately." Marilyn opened her purse, removed a single business card, and placed it on the table like a final move in a long game of chess. "Clint Warner, real estate attorney." Stephanie glanced at it, then up at her mother. "So that's it? You're just turning us in?" Marilyn folded her hands. "No, I already did." By sunset, Clint had filed the civil suit. The cover page read, "Plaintiff, Marilyn Decker defendants, Stephanie Decker Holmes and Gregory Holmes cause, attempted deed fraud, financial coercion and elder exploitation." The next morning, Sharon Langley called both Stephanie and Greg. They were asked formally to appear at the DA's office for preliminary interviews. "We're moving past investigation," Sharon said when she called Marilyn. "The case is being prepped for prosecutorial review. Digital forensics locked it in. We found 5 drafts of a forged POA, multiple altered appraisals, and here's the kicker: a flagged mortgage application that used your property value as a disclosed asset." "Will they fight it?" Marilyn asked. "They'll try. But not well." That night, Rachel sat on the curb, watching Greg's car back out of the driveway across the street. Its trunk was half open, a rolled yoga mat dangling out. Stephanie stood near the mailbox, arms folded across her chest, not speaking as the car disappeared. Rachel didn't wave. She simply whispered, "There it is. The silence of people who lost control." Later, back inside, Clint knocked once on the kitchen door and walked in without waiting. He held a large envelope in his hand. "No return address. Postmarked from town." "Someone's getting clumsy," he said. "This came directly to my office." No signature. He placed it on the table and opened it slowly. Inside, a printed will. Clean layout. Dated 2 months prior. On the bottom line, Marilyn Decker's signature. Forged under beneficiaries. One name, Stephanie Decker Holmes, 100% sole heir. Rachel gasped. Marilyn didn't move. Clint shook his head once. "The formatting's close, but the estate file number doesn't match. She must have used a template from a prior draft you made years ago. Probably found it on your home computer before we put up the firewall." Marilyn exhaled, long and slow. "I taught her to write essays," she said, almost to herself. "I didn't think I'd have to teach her the meaning of perjury." "We'll add this to the civil case," Clint said. "But this might be enough to trigger a new charge." The will said she was dead. And yet here she stood, steady hands, a sharpened mind, and a pen ready to sign her actual legacy into being. Marilyn pressed her initials beside the final clause. Clint nodded once, slow and deliberate. "There," he said. "It's official now. Your house, your accounts, your story protected and purposed." The document was thick, weighted with legal permanence. The Decker Endowment for Rural Women in Education. Her home would fund scholarships. Her retirement accounts were placed in a trust for future teaching fellows. And Rachel Sharp, observant Rachel, had been named a state manager in training with full mentorship written into the grant's bylaws. "I don't want her just cleaning up after me when I'm gone," Marilyn said, as she slid the leather folder shut. "I want her carrying something forward." Rachel didn't say anything. She just hugged her tightly, like she finally understood what legacy was supposed to feel like. 2 days later, Sharon Langley called from the courthouse, her tone clipped but triumphant. "It's her handwriting," she said. "The forged will matches 3 grocery lists and a birthday card she wrote to Rachel in 2020. And the metadata tags show the document was created on her home laptop. On June 15th, day after she filed me dead, Marilyn murmured. How poetic. I'm adding felony forgery to the file, Sharon continued. DA's office is already working on the formal charge bundle. We're close now. Stephanie didn't respond to calls. Her voicemail was suddenly full. Greg's social media had gone dark. The only sounds from their house were drawn blinds and silence. But Wilmington was a small town, and the headlines moved fast. Once the profile dropped in the local paper, the librarian who turned the page on exploitation at 72, Marilyn Decker, knew her daughter wanted her house. What she didn't know, at first, was how far Stephanie would go to get it. What followed was a legal reckoning rooted in dignity, intelligence, and the quiet rage of a woman who refused to be erased. The article ran with a full-color photo of Marilyn sitting on her porch, holding a red leather notebook and staring straight at the camera. Not angry, not vengeful, just unmovable. Marilyn didn't care about going viral. But the paper trail? That mattered. It made the lies public. It made them permanent. The fallout came within 48 hours. Stephanie's brokerage received a formal notification from the state licensing board. Ethics violations under review. The forged documents, fake listing attempts, and impersonation were all flagged. By Friday, her license status online changed from active to suspended, pending tribunal. Clint dropped off a printed screenshot. Funny how fast they cut ties when the ink isn't in their favor, he said. Cut the anchor before it pulls them down. Marilyn replied. That night, while Marilyn was grading Rachel's mock estate worksheet in the den, she heard footsteps rush down the stairs. Grandma, Rachel called, breathless. I found something. It was buried in Mom's email backups. She must have used the wrong login on my laptop months ago. Marilyn looked up. Rachel held a printed copy of an email, time-stamped, addressed to a house flipper with the subject line, Urgent Pre-Inheritance Opportunity, Will Move Fast. The body of the email read, My mother is elderly, declining, and likely to sell soon. I'm her POA and can facilitate a quick transaction. House is mortgage-free. Will discount for cash. Just need speed and discretion. Attached 3 exterior shots of Marilyn's home, an appraisal sheet with the Decker address, a fake signature authorization line with Marilyn's name. Rachel's hands were shaking as she handed it over. She was never waiting for you to pass, she whispered. She was trying to erase you before the ink was dry. Marilyn read the email in silence. Her eyes didn't widen. Her lips didn't twitch. But she folded the paper like it was toxic. Then let's disinfect it, she said quietly, and file it with the rest. The satisfaction wasn't in revenge. It was in precision. Marilyn folded the bank transfer receipt, slid it into a plain manila envelope, and placed it on the hall table under the antique lamp. The bulb above her flickered faintly as the autumn wind rattled the window panes. Soft percussion for a quiet victory. Congratulations, Clint had said earlier that morning. The LLC officially owns the property. Your daughter now lives in a house she doesn't know is yours. Marilyn didn't smile. Good, she said. Let's move quickly before the illusion sets back in. Stephanie and Greg's mortgage had defaulted last week. Months of missed payments, compounded by the balloon clause. With no rescue equity, no fallback, and no working licenses between them, the property had been flagged for quiet auction. Marilyn had watched it happen in real time, her expression unreadable, like a librarian scanning overdue fines. She created a limited liability company named RMJ Estates, her initials buried under layers of legal sheet. Aaron Patel, acting as liaison, handled the purchase through a proxy account at the credit union. The house went for well below market, no bidders, no fight, clean title transfer. Aaron confirmed that afternoon, handing over the deed, and I've just submitted the notice, mortgage fully reassigned, effective immediately. Hours later, the Holmes family's mailbox swallowed the notification like a quiet, bureaucratic snake. Greg was the first to notice. What the hell is this? His voice echoed down the block as he waved the envelope on the front lawn, face red, jaw clenching with each syllable. This says our mortgage has been sold. Stephanie stepped out in her bathrobe, hair half dyed, eyes sunken. What are you talking about? Sold to who? Rachel watched from Marilyn's upstairs window as her mother took the letter, read it once, and paled. The silence between them stretched like a held breath. Within 24 hours, Clint filed the eviction notice with the clerk's office, citing default and ownership transfer. There were no loopholes, no wiggle room, no time. The movers arrived Thursday. Two men in matching gray jumpsuits began quietly packing up everything. Stephanie had once flaunted velvet bar stools, gold-accented wine fridge, faux crystal lamps, Greg's prized leather sectional. Rachel stood on the sidewalk, sipping an iced tea slowly, watching as her mother gave orders in a panic, then just stopped, slumped against the garage wall, mascara streaking down her cheek. Inside the house, Greg finally cracked. "This is your fault," he snarled, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "You played rich with borrowed time, Stephanie. You paraded and posed and lied, and now look." He threw a crystal vase at the front door, shattering it across the entryway. "Greg." Stephanie tried, voice cracking. "No," he said. "You blew it. You tried to turn your mother into an ATM, and now we're being foreclosed on by a ghost company." "Jesus, Stephanie." Back across town, Marilyn sat quietly in her kitchen, stirring honey into her tea. She didn't speak. She didn't visit. She didn't gloat. She simply mailed the keys to the credit union. No letter, no return address. Rachel returned just before dusk. "They packed her espresso machine last," she said. "Wrapped it like it was priceless. She used to make lattes and lie in that same breath." Marilyn murmured. "She didn't say your name once," Rachel added. "That's fine," Marilyn replied, sipping her tea. "She knows it now." The house that had once held cocktail parties and false smiles was now just another address with a lockbox on the door. And just as Marilyn dropped the empty envelope into the trash, her landline rang. She let it ring twice, then picked up. "Marilyn Decker," she said evenly. "It's Sharon Langley," came the voice on the other end. "Just got the official word from the DA." Marilyn sat straighter. "She's officially being charged," Sharon said. "Forgery, exploitation, real estate fraud. Are you ready for court?" The chains groaned softly as Marilyn settled into the porch, swing her husband built 30 years ago. The boards under her feet still creaked in that familiar warm way, like the house recognized her weight, remembered it, welcomed it. Outside, the sky stretched wide and blue over the neighborhood, clean and still, and in her lap, Rachel's college acceptance letter sat open, the gold seal glinting in the morning light. Full ride, Rachel had whispered the night before, tears in her eyes. Pre-law at Chapel Hill. Marilyn had just nodded, placing a hand over her granddaughter's. "Your mother may have weaponized paper, but you'll wield it with purpose." Now, with her legs gently rocking and the swing clicking against its worn bolts, Marilyn sipped her sweet tea and let the lemon wedge slide gently across her tongue. The bitterness was gone. What remained was earned. Inside, Clint Warner sat at her kitchen table, with a thick stack of legal documents. He wore his usual linen jacket, and smelled faintly of cedar and ink. "It's done," he said, tapping the top page. "Protective Estate Trust is now sealed, filed, and irrevocable. They can't touch a single nail in these walls." He paused. "No one can. Not without your explicit instruction." Marilyn glanced toward the study. "Leave a copy in the safe. I want Rachel to have access after I'm gone. She's earned her place in this story." Clint smiled. "Already ahead of you." Later that afternoon, Rachel used a level and two brass screws to hang a small black plaque above the mantel in the study. The lettering was gold-etched and quiet in tone. "Decker Home Not for Sale. Not ever." Marilyn stood behind her, hands folded. "That's what legacy looks like, sweetheart. It's not money, it's clarity." Outside, a delivery truck hummed past. The driver glanced at the house, then back at his clipboard. The Decker home had become a landmark again, not for its architecture but for its resistance. Aaron Patel showed up just after 3, hair tied back, smile tired but satisfied. "They're gone," she said, handing Marilyn the envelope. "Mortgage marked as closed due to full default. Public record will update next week." "No forwarding address?" Marilyn asked. Aaron shrugged. "Rumor has it they're headed to Georgia. Greg has a cousin with a mattress store." Marilyn didn't laugh, but her eyes smiled. She didn't look out the window to watch them leave. She didn't need to. The silence was enough, the way the house exhaled without them nearby. No yelling, no plotting, no shadowed intentions pushing at the edges of her peace. As the sun dipped low, casting long amber streaks across the hardwood floors, Sharon Langley pulled up in her unmarked sedan. Marilyn greeted her at the door with a nod. "I brought this," Sharon said, holding out a manila folder. "It's official. Charges are locked. Trial date's been scheduled for mid-June. Fraud, forgery, attempted exploitation of a vulnerable adult." Marilyn opened the folder and scanned the crisp black type. "Stephanie's name is right there," Sharon said softly. "Under defendant, not daughter." Marilyn didn't flinch. "She made that choice when she tried to erase me with signatures." The two women sat together for a moment on the porch, the late day light settling over their shoulders like a wool shawl. "I don't regret pressing charges," Marilyn said finally. "You shouldn't," Sharon replied. "But you're not done yet." Marilyn turned her head. "What do you mean?" Sharon pulled a thin white envelope from her coat pocket. "No return address. Postmarked yesterday." "It's from Stephanie's new attorney," Sharon said. "She's countersuing." Marilyn raised an eyebrow. "Claiming emotional distress. That you orchestrated all of this to destroy her financially and socially." Marilyn took the envelope. Her fingers were steady, her voice colder than steel in January. "She tried to steal my house with lies," she said. "And now she wants compensation for her tantrum." Sharon offered a rueful smile. "You'll need to respond. Official summons is coming." The early spring wind smelled like honeysuckle and damp pine. Marilyn walked the edges of her property barefoot, the grass cool beneath her toes, her cane untouched by the porch. The sky was streaked with early gold morning fog still clinging to the low-lying shrubs, as if the land itself was exhaling relief. She moved slow but steady, fingertips grazing the fence posts she and her husband had installed together decades ago. Some had warped, some had cracked, but they stood. And so did she. Rachel waited by the old oak with a leather binder tucked beneath one arm. Inside were the estate trust documents, now signed, sealed and protected under irrevocable law. Rachel had gone through every line herself, red pen in hand, just like Marilyn used to when grading 7th grade essays on misplaced modifiers and comma splices. "No gaps," Rachel said, flipping to the final page. Clint double-checked. "It's airtight." Marilyn nodded. "Because legacy isn't just what you leave behind, it's what you don't let others ruin." The phone rang just as they stepped onto the porch. Clint's voice crackled through the receiver like a relieved sigh. "Countersuit's been dismissed. No damages, no appeals. Judge said it lacked merit in both fact and tone." He paused, then added, "It's done, Marilyn." Marilyn smiled, but didn't reply right away. She looked out over the marshline beyond her yard, where cattails swayed in the wind like dancers who'd survived a storm. "She lost the house," she said finally, "but I kept the roots." Later that week, Rachel knocked on her grandmother's office door, holding an envelope in one hand and her laptop in the other. "I made a decision," she said. Marilyn raised an eyebrow. "Law school," Rachel announced, slipping the acceptance letter onto the desk. "I want to learn how to do what you did, but fiercer, cleaner, legal and loud." Marilyn's fingers traced the edge of the paper, pride welling behind her ribs like something sacred. "Then you won't just inherit this home, you'll understand how to defend it." By mid-April, the Wilmington Library had dusted off the auditorium's folding chairs for a full house. Marilyn stood at the lectern, in front of a room full of women, some young, some gray-haired, all scribbling in notebooks as she spoke beneath the banner. "Inheritance isn't a strategy, protecting yourself from your own blood." She read from real documents, altered listings, forged POAs, fabricated diagnoses. The audience murmured as she closed each folder, her voice steady. They come for us quietly, she said, with paperwork instead of weapons. But we can be louder, with facts, with laws, with memory. When the applause rose at the end, Marilyn didn't bow. She just nodded, the same way she used to nod when her best students finally found the right thesis in their essays. 2 weeks later, Sharon knocked on the back door instead of the front. She pled out, she said. Forgery. Attempted fraud. No jail time, but a steep fine. She's barred from real estate licensure in all 50 states. Marilyn didn't ask about Greg. Sharon handed her the last folder, thinner than the rest. No appeal, no contest. They sat at the kitchen table, drinking lukewarm coffee with too much sugar. Outside, Rachel was hanging wind chimes shaped like tiny gavels and scales of justice. You still angry? Sharon asked. Marilyn sipped her coffee. No. Relieved. A little. Sharon leaned forward. Satisfied. Marilyn looked out the window, where the sunlight cut through the trees and spilled across her granddaughter's shoulders. Rachel turned, laughing, the wind chimes ringing like bells. Yes, she said. Satisfied. She faked a disease to take my house. I used the truth to take back every square foot of my peace.